Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Cash That. This is your host, Joe Dellera, and we have a jam-packed Wednesday NBA slate. But before we get into that, this episode is brought to you by our good friends at Rhythm. Rhythm is the #1 AI betting tool in the market. You can create your own models, you can use their models, you can use their projections. They even have those hit rate charts that you know and love, and you can get it for free for a week to try it out on me. And if you like it, come back and get 25% off your first month. And you can use the links right here down in the description. Again, we ask that you like, subscribe, give us a comment on this podcast, share it to your friends, let everybody know. And we are trying to beat the books together. So this is going to be a great episode, jam-packed, give you some of the picks, do a little bit of awards talk. I'm not going to do too much on the All-Star game. I do have a couple comments right off the bat, and we will talk about it a little bit more on the stream. And then we're going to have another Buckets episode later in the week. So it should be a lot of fun. But literally every team in the league is playing today. And the team that I want to start with, I'm going to start with a message here. I don't know who needs to hear this. Malik Beasley is the 6th man of the year. I know that DeAndre Hunter averages more points per game. We'll see maybe tonight. I don't know if he's going to really start like coming off the bench again for the Cleveland Cavaliers. They had their opportunity. Max Strus was hurt. DeAndre Hunter started. I think that he makes the most sense to start on that team. So we'll see if he comes off the bench anymore, but I think that's going to really open things up. Obviously, Pritchard is still the consensus favorite. However, when you look at some of these stats, right, Malik Beasley averages 16.6 points per game. Hunter's at 18.8. Peyton Pritchard's at 13.9. Pritchard and Hunter both average 3.8 rebounds. Beasley's at 2.9. Pritchard averages the most assists, 3.5. Beasley's at 1.7. Hunter's at 1.5. But Beasley, he's like coming in these games, he's just crushing threes. He's averaging almost 4 threes a game, which is more than both Pritchard and Hunter. And he's doing it for a Detroit Pistons team that like really needs his contributions. Additionally, when we look at his charts over the last couple of months, we've been seeing like a pretty significant uptick out of Malik Beasley. And he has just continued to dominate from 3. Over his last 20 games, he's averaging 4.3. Over his last 10, 5 threes per game. Like, I love the spot. I think that when you look at Pritchard, as good as he's been, a lot of it has to do with the fact that Boston's so good. And maybe that's something that they'll reward. And I know Boston really has the media cycle humming for them. But Malik Beasley is definitely worth a look. If I had to pick one person to hedge that Peyton Pritchard 101 ticket that we have, I would be looking at Malik Beasley. And that also ties into my first prop for the day is we are going to be looking at Malik Beasley over 3.5 or 4 threes today. We're going to run it back. He literally just did this against the Chicago Bulls on Tuesday night. So last night, made 7. So now he's made 5, 5, and 7 against Chicago this season. So like I said, he's averaging 5 threes per game over his last 10, 4+ in 8 of 10 games. I can't do it. I can't look away. I get that it's the same matchup. I need to do it again. I'm just going to keep betting it. It's just been printing money. So we're going to take over 3.5 threes, -120 on DraftKings for Malik Beasley. Now let's turn to the next game. So we got the Hawks versus the Knicks. The Knicks are 7.5 point favorites. Let me check and make sure this hasn't moved over the past couple minutes or so. Yeah, so Knicks are now -8, -8.5, and Trae Young is probable. Jalen Johnson's out. Vit is out. I think Brunson had a pretty bad game last night. I could totally see a Brunson game loading here. The one prop that I do want to take, though, is I want to take Zachary Risacher over 11.5 points for the Atlanta Hawks. He's played 2 games against the Knicks. One game he went off. Other game, not so much. It was pretty underwhelming. Part of why I want to take Risacher today is, they don't have Vit. They don't have Bogdanovich now. They don't have DeAndre Hunter. And DeAndre Hunter was a guy that crushed the Knicks. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that the Knicks have this tendency. So here's the other thing. OG Anunoby is questionable again with that foot-toe injury, right? I know that they're putting him on the report as questionable. I don't think they're going to play him. I don't see it. They sat him yesterday. And I know that when you look at it, you go, oh, well, like he can come back and play. If you're the New York Knicks and you're looking at the situation, he's missed the past couple games. Why would you play him today in a game against Atlanta when you have another week off coming up? Just give him the whole time to rest and recover. You know how important he is. He should sit. So that's going to hurt the Knicks' wing and perimeter defense to a degree as well. So if anything, I would also lean the over in this game, given the Hawks play at such a fast pace. I think that also is going to open up things for Reaves from beyond the arc, because the Knicks have this tendency to like overhelp. And they don't have Jalen Johnson, obviously. They don't have Bogdanovich. They don't have Hunter. Trey should play. I think that this is going to be a game where Reaves is looked to as like a second, probably a third option on the Hawks offense, and is going to get his chances here. This Hawks team is not on a playoff trajectory right now. They kind of like they can maybe contend for the play-in, but given the fact that they've sold off some players are out for the season, this isn't a great Hawks team. I think they're going to give Reaves a run, and in this matchup, I like his prop of over 11.5 points. Looking at the Hornets versus the Magic are 11.5 point favorites. No LaMelo, no Brandon Miller, no Mark Williams. Moussa Diabate got smacked in the face by Isaiah Stewart. That hurt us last game. And then Jalen Suggs is listed as doubtful for Orlando. Tough game. You kind of have to look at Orlando just saying, like, who do the Hornets have? They just don't have any bodies here. Don't have a super strong lean in this game either way. If I had to, I would go with Orlando, and I would probably be looking at Franz Wagner's points. I know that Paolo went off last game, but I don't have a lot of faith in him to keep that level of consistency up. Then we have the Pacers versus the Wizards. The Wizards are 10.5 point underdogs here. So they are, 9.5 point underdogs. And they haven't been particularly compelling this season, but they do have a number of players that are going to be missing to this game. When you're looking at the report, they don't have Middleton. Alex Sarr is questionable again. So when you're looking at their interior defense, it's going to be a little bit lacking. You have to wonder if Miles Turner is going to play after sitting out yesterday for Indiana. That could open up a couple more things in terms of minutes for some of the other players here. Maybe like a Tomas Bryant at 13.5 points, given the fact that Washington is a little bit more thin on the interior. Tyrese Halliburton, this is a matchup that he has scored well in, basically scoring 20-plus points in 6 of his last 7 games against them. He's also dimed very well against Washington. This is a very weak Washington defense. So I think you could maybe look at a PA line for him, especially after having like a slightly underwhelming game last night. I don't mind to look at PA here for Tyrese Halliburton. And then obviously they don't have Kyle Kuzma anymore, and that's kind of opened up some more minutes and some more opportunity for guys like Bilal Coulibaly, Bub Carrington. Bilal had a little bit of a step-down game last game. Maybe you could look at him in this spot. I also think that Keshawn George could also have a good game. He's at 10.5 points, hit that in 4 of his last 5. So if you were looking to kind of create like a little bit of a parlay, that's not something crazy, especially seeing that Keshawn George's minutes have ticked up into the mid-30s now. So I think that 10.5 points for him could be a touch light, just given the new and like increased role for him. All right, let's look at the next game. We've got the Spurs versus the Celtics. The Celtics, this line has been creeping against them, right? So right now we are looking at the Celtics minus 8.5. It opened at minus 9.5. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Spurs getting a little bit more money. Part of the thing is Drew Holiday is out. Jaylen Brown is questionable with a knee injury. The guy that I'm targeting here is Devin Vassell. I like over 14.5 points. He's hit this in 3 of 4 games versus Boston, 3 and 4 with De'Aaron Fox as well. And I think that it's a spot for him now where he's not looked at as a primary creator. He doesn't have to take on that role because he's playing the majority of his minutes alongside of at least one of Fox or Chris Paul, right? So I think that helps him. He also is obviously seeing some minutes with Stephon Castle, but it's taken a little bit of the pressure off of him to be an exterior scorer or like a perimeter scorer, and it's helped open up a couple things in his game. I think that Boston, they don't tend to overhelp, which I think is important. But given the fact that Drew's out, Jaylen Brown's questionable and might miss, I do think that Vassell could maybe see some slightly softer matchups here too. So at 14.5 points, I like it. I think that we're getting a little bit of extra opportunity here against a Boston team that has been a little bit hit or miss on the defensive side of the ball this year. So I'm going to grab Vassell over 14.5 points against the Boston Celtics. The Sixers versus the Nets. Honestly, we don't really know if Embiid is going to play. I highly doubt that Embiid is going to play. It's a back-to-back. Played yesterday against the Toronto Raptors. I would be shocked if he plays today. It's a back-to-back for the Raptors. I'm sorry. It's a back-to-back for Philly, obviously, then. Nick Claxton is questionable with injury today. The player that I'm looking at Kelly Oubre at over 6.5 rebounds. Part of why I like this spot for Kelly Oubre is that he has been honestly very solid on the glass just generally this season. And over his last 10 games, he's hit this in 7 of those 10. Over his last 20, he's hit this in 6 of those 20, 12 of those 20, so 60% of the games. If we take Joel Embiid off the floor, that's going to open up some more rebounding opportunities. And considering that Brooklyn might be missing Nick Claxton, they're going to be relatively undersized on the interior as well. So I think that grabbing the 6.5 here is a great number. I'm seeing some 7.5s in the market, but I do really like the 6.5 for Kelly Oubre here in a game that they likely don't have Joel Embiid. The Cavs versus the Raptors. Raptors are monster underdogs. We are looking at a current spread of 13.5 points, where the Raptors are 13.5 point underdogs. It's a back-to-back for the Raptors. Ty Jerome is questionable. Max Strus is questionable. Dean Wade is out. I think that both Allen and Mobley should kind of crush. The problem that I have and the concern that I have is obviously that this could and probably will be a blowout. So I want to stay away from this game when we have so many other games on the slate that we can really tackle. If I was looking for anything in Toronto, I might be looking at like a quickly PRA under, Scotty Barnes under. I think this is going to be a very tough game for Toronto. And then this also goes into the DeAndre Hunter conversation that I had. That's just adding another big long wing for defensive purposes for Cleveland. So I think this is going to be a very, very tough game for Toronto. Kings versus the Pelicans. The Pelicans are 4.5, 5-point underdogs. The biggest thing is that Herb Jones is done for the season. CJ McCollum is questionable due to personal reasons. Obviously, Brandon Ingram isn't there anymore for the Pelicans. I think it creates this interesting situation for Zion, right? If we look at, I'm going to pull it up now. If we look at the Pelicans depth chart, they're kind of they're a little thin right now at a multitude of positions. They've got Jose Alvarado. They have Bruce Brown now. And then you're looking at, Trey Murphy, Zion Williamson, Yves Missi. I am not 100% sure how the assists are going to look. I do think that a lot of the offense is going to run through Zion. It's going to run through Trey Murphy. And when I'm looking at their lines, right, Trey Murphy is sitting at the spot, right? So this is against the Sacramento Kings. Trey Murphy is sitting at 23.5 points. Zion's at 25.5 points. I don't think that CJ McCollum's going to play. Last game for the break, maybe they give the vet an extra day off, right? I do think looking at this, though, that Zion's assist prop is interesting. So he's at 4.5 assists. I don't mind adding the points to it. He's at 25.5 points. So if you took 25.5, it's basically 30 PA. And he's hit this in basically 50% of his games without McCollum. I do think that there's a little bit more to it because obviously there's no Brandon Ingram, right? He's hit this in 2 of 3 without Ingram over the past, whatever it is, couple games. Majority of, basically 2 of 3 in the ones that he's played over the past couple of seasons without both McCollum and Ingram. Let's say we take out McCollum, we leave it where it's just Ingram. He's still hitting this line pretty consistently, the 30.5. A lot of games right at 30, right? So it does give us a little bit of an opportunity to see an uptick. Corrado is going to get some opportunity. He's going to get a little bit of run, but he's just not the most efficient player. Last game, we thought that he was going to see a little bit more run, 23 minutes. So not really a super big opportunity for him. Bruce Brown probably takes away a little bit of the facilitating as like a secondary facilitator. But I do think that we could see a lot more opportunities with Zion kind of running the point here, especially if CJ McCollum is out. So given the fact that I kind of like the matchup anyway, at 4.5 assists and 25.5 points, I'm pretty comfortable grabbing 30.5 PA right now with the opportunity for this line to balloon if CJ McCollum is ruled out later in the day, which wouldn't really surprise me given the fact that it's the last day before the All-Star break or at least I think it is for the Pelicans. Let me double check. Oh no, I'm sorry. These two teams play twice. So they play 2 games in New Orleans against the Kings back to back today and tomorrow. So we'll keep an eye on it. But one of these games, I'm going to, okay, let's put it this way. If McCollum plays today, I'm definitely going to want this tomorrow. I think that it's possible that he sits then. It's also a back-to-back. I don't know if Zion's going to sit on one of these games. So maybe Zion plays today, McCollum plays tomorrow, or, maybe nobody plays tomorrow. And they don't play Zion in the back-to-back. So I think I'm still going to grab the 30.5. I'll dig into it a little bit more. You'll see it come out in the action app or in the huddle. Glad I looked at that schedule for you guys. All right. So now we're looking at the Heat versus the Thunder. Tyler Hero is questionable. Jaime Jaquez is questionable. Kevin Love's out. Chet Holmgren is out. Without Chet Holmgren, we almost have to look at Isaiah Hartenstein, his over 11.5 rebounds. He's been an absolute fucking wagon for the Oklahoma City Thunder this season, especially without Chet. We look at Hartenstein's rebounds prop, right? So it's at 11.5. Without Chet Holmgren, he has hit this in 65% of games this season, 20 out of 31. He's also hit his assist prop in 19 out of 31, and he's hit his points prop in 20 out of 31. So we can combine it all into PRA, still a 65% hit rate at 25.5. His double-double, he's recorded a double-double in 61% of these games. So basically every time he's getting the rebounds and the points, he's getting a double-double. It's almost exactly synonymous with each other. And then if we looked at even RA 15.5, he's hit that in 55% of games. So this is a great spot, I think, against Miami. Miami plays slow. However, now they're playing like a double big lineup. So I do think that you need to have Hartenstein out there with Kel'el Ware and Bam Adebayo. So even though Oklahoma City likely blows them out, I do think that we're going to have to see some more, like a little bit of extended run at a Hartenstein today against this Miami Heat team. So I think if you were really going to look at anything, double-double might be the best bet. I think it's like plus 150. So double-double is probably the way to go with Hartenstein today against this Miami Heat team. Now, looking at the Bucks versus the Wolves, no Giannis. Lillard is probable. Anthony Edwards is questionable. Julius Randle is out. I think you have to look at Rudy Gobert over 11.5 rebounds. No Giannis, so this is really just a head-to-head matchup with Brook Lopez, who is also kind of a slower guy. They're probably going to let him, roam on the perimeter, which is fine. It's not enough to pull Rudy out of the paint, I don't think. I think over 11.5 rebounds is probably a good look. And then Damian Lillard also, you kind of have to look at the assists, but I am a little concerned with the Kyle Kuzma addition there in terms of what his usage could be, in terms of some of the usage that he's going to take. So it's not going to be the direct comparison where, Giannis is out, Lillard, all of his stuff goes up. I think that's true. I think that will happen. But I also think that it's less significant now with Kyle Kuzma in tow. I just think that it's not as needed, or so to speak. So I'm going to be looking at Rudy over 11.5 rebounds. Haven't fired on it yet, but I'm like basically right at the number. I'm trying to figure out if I want to add this to my card or not, given the volume of games today. Looking at the Suns versus the Rockets, 5.5-ish point favorites. Alperen Şengün is questionable. Fred VanVleet is out. When we look at this matchup, the one player that has really, really thrived this season has been Jalen Green. Jalen Green has been fantastic here. I do question when they're going to play Şengün because they play today and they play Golden State tomorrow. This game against the Suns is interesting. I think that it's the second game of a back-to-back. Maybe you want to just strike them first and try to get this W, or you sit and you say like, well, we want to take advantage of the Warriors on the interior. They're super thin there. They don't have a lot of interior strength. Maybe that's where we want to keep Şengün. Whereas with Phoenix, if Şengün doesn't play, I think that they have enough to kind of combat them. We would obviously see a pretty big uptick in Tari Eason in his stats and his rebounds. So that's where I would be looking today if I was looking for Houston. I also think that Amen Thompson would also see his stats pop if Şengün sits. But Jalen Green has really been good against Phoenix as well. So I would look at Jalen Green, his points for this game. When Jalen Green has played the Phoenix Suns this season, he is averaging 34 points a game. Or no, they haven't played. I'm sorry, they haven't played yet. But at the end of last season when they played, 34 and 34 for Jalen Green against the Phoenix Suns. Not too much has changed personnel-wise for Phoenix. So I do think that this could be a spot for Jalen Green to kind of pop off without Fred VanVleet, without Jabari Smith, obviously, and without Şengün. So definitely something that I'm looking at for that game. Then we have the Blazers versus the Nuggets. They just played the other day. DeAndre Ayton's out, Scoot Henderson's out, Aaron Gordon's probable, Jamal Murray is probable, Michael Porter Jr. is questionable. I think you almost have to look at Jokic again. He's been so ridiculous this season, and really against Portland as well. 40 points last time out, 34, 29, 29, a lot of games at 29. Points prop is at 28.5. I mean, he's just consistently hitting. And the thing is, he's been efficient. I also think that, without Michael Porter Jr., it opens up a little bit more. Like, he almost has to score. They just need some more scoring. So at 28.5 points, it's not a bad look. I don't know if I need it right now, but it's definitely something that I am considering. Then we have the Lakers against the Jazz again, right? The spread has moved around and it's had a little bit of odd action. So it moved from open at 7.5, it's bumped up to 8.5. We've seen it come back down around the 8. Luka should play. It's the same matchup that we had before, and Luka took a ton of threes, just couldn't make any. You have to wonder if he's going to be, and his lines haven't really adjusted, right? So if we look at Luka's stats, he's at 25.5 points, 6.5 rebounds, 7.5 assists, and 3.5 threes at plus money. He played 23 minutes. I think that he only played 23 because it was such a big blowout. I think he probably would have played closer to 30. The problem is that I wouldn't be surprised if they blow them out again. When these teams played, Utah just couldn't stop them at all. You just had no chance to stop them. So I think that that's a little bit of an issue for Luka in terms of what his minutes in rotation are going to be. They're not going to push him. As a result, the one player that I do really like here is I like Austin Reaves, 28.5 PRA. He had 35 against Utah last time out, and he's been hot lately. He's hit this in 5 straight games, and even if we look at his last 10, he's averaging 34. His misses on this 28.5 are at 28, 28, 28, and 27. I think that he is going to be in a great position here. Dorian Finney-Smith is out. Gabe Vincent is out. Colin Sexton's out for Utah. Luka and Reaves are both probable. I like this spot because when you watch the game, the way the rotations worked for the Lakers last time out, Reaves still saw that fourth quarter rotation, even though they were up really big. So to me, I think this raises his floor. I also think that it's harder to defend him. You have LeBron. He's basically sharing the floor with LeBron or Luka at all times, and both of them are unselfish, obviously. And I think this is it's another great spot where you don't have these other guys that stretch the floor. So like Vincent and Dorian Finney-Smith are two guys that help stretch the floor. I think that Reaves can kind of fill that role as a spot-up three-point shooter as well. So between the rebounds, the assists, because they're a little bit more undersized right now, and then the ability to stretch the floor, shoot a couple threes, Austin Reaves over 28.5 PRA. Love it. The Warriors are playing the Mavericks today. The Mavs literally just have 0 bigs. Just none of them. Just don't exist for them. PJ Washington is questionable, and I think that's what's the hinge on these Max Christie lines. I'm going to want to be on Max Christie again against the Golden State Warriors. I have to see where the lines come out. We were at whatever it was, like 16.5 PR last time. I think if PJ Washington is in, that might drop it a little bit. I'm still going to like it. So it's definitely that's the prop that I'm looking for and waiting for in this game. And then the Grizzlies play the Clippers. Clippers are about 3.5, 4-point favorites, back-to-back for Memphis. Have to see who is or isn't playing right now. They haven't had to submit their injury report just yet. But I do think this is a game where I lean the Clippers. just given the fact that it was a back-to-back for Memphis, it's a bad schedule spot. They're not playing tomorrow, so this is a getaway game for them. And I think that makes it always a little bit tougher for a team that was on a back-to-back, played a tough game, and then now has to play another one before they get to go on vacation. So I think it's a tough spot for the Grizzlies, rather. Just a quick touch on all-star stuff. I'm going to be looking into the three-point contest a little bit more. My gut reaction looking at the field was I wanted to be on Norman Powell to win the three-point contest. I have to dig into the details a little bit more. I'll have some more written work out for this and like a shored-up pick for sure. But I'm looking at Norman Powell. I think that his ability to, catch and shoot, along with his ability to score off handoffs, is going to be really important for this game or for this contest as well. It's tough to look away from Dame, the fact that he's going for the three-peat, but it's really hard to win this contest continuously, especially with the rise in three-point shooting kind of across the league. So I think it's a tough spot for Dame. It's hard to bet against him, but at the same time, I think there's a little bit more value on the board. Dunk contest, if McCollum's going to do it, he's always the favorite. I think that Castle will be interesting, and it should be better. Like, it should be okay to watch, but it kind of has lost a little bit of his allure of late. For the Rising Stars Challenge, I want to pull up the roster, but basically my initial reaction to this was that it was, what was it? Team Mitch, I believe. So, because it had both the Thompson brothers, the Thompson twins. And I was like, well, that team's going to be good. So I was looking at that. And then for the All-Star game, the format's a little interesting because I guess the old guys are playing against the rookies and like the rising stars, and that makes their path a little bit easier. But I liked the international team. I thought was the best one. So that was Team Chuck. But I think their path is a little bit tougher. So we'll have to see exactly how that works out, how that shakes out. I don't really know how they're going to do props on these games because it's not a full game. Historically, we've seen certain guys like Jokic doesn't give a shit. Luka doesn't give a shit. And we could target their unders. But in these short, like micro games, it's going to be a little bit more interesting. So we'll dive in, but I haven't seen any props up really. Curry for MVP is like a standard, right? He's the favorite. He's the hometown guy, 5-1. It's tough to talk you off of that, but it's also not going to move. So I'm not looking to bet that right now. I want to see where there's some other value on the board. But I would think maybe like a guy like Wemby, but he's only like 8-1. So it becomes a little bit more difficult in finding real value in that market at this point in time. So just something to consider, and we'll get into pods and recs here. So for pods and recs, the thing I'm going to recommend do a little chuck roast or something lately. It's, it's kind of still cold, and get a chuck roast. It's a little bit cheaper, obviously, than like a short rib or something like that, but feed a lot more people. You could pull it if you want, use it for tacos. You put it on top of like pasta, and or you can put it on top of like a mashed potato as well. Just really a fantastic way to kind of take care of business and feed a lot of people, not go crazy. And what I did was I did mine, threw a little bit of red wine in with it, did some salt, pepper, rosemary. But the key is you have to brown it before you put it in whatever you're going to slow cook it in, whether it's Dutch oven, crock pot, whatever. You have to brown it, get those sides like nice and charred up. You're going to be chilling. Also, Valentine's Day this week. So like if you haven't done anything yet, you should probably do something. Like get a card, get some candy, get like whatever you want to get. Make a reservation. Try to do it now in case you forget. You got a couple days, but you could probably find something. But just don't forget. Just don't be the guy that doesn't do anything. So those are my recommendations, and we'll keep going. So make sure that you obviously subscribe if you like the work. It helps me, helps you, and we can try to make this money back and get this money up to pay for those Valentine's Day dinners, those gifts, whatever. And we can all thank Rhythm for presenting this show. Rhythm is the #1 AI betting tool in the market. And if you don't know what to get for Valentine's Day, or you don't know what you want, tell your significant other to get you a Rhythm subscription. Get a subscription to the Huddle and to Rhythm, and it'll be perfect. Just the links are in the bio here. I'll give you a little bit of a free trial, and we can continue to cash that.